Good morning, everyone. Happy Sunday, and welcome to another edition of WST Sunday Live. My name is Connor Hrabchak. In a moment, I'm going to be joined by Lyss Houde, and together we're going to break down Friday's game. The Jets took on the Carolina Hurricanes. They lost 4-3 in that one. Nikolai Ehlers return, Winnipeg Sports Talk Ticket Pack night. Eric Comrie started that game for a reason. Connor Hellebuyck is out 4 to 6 weeks. We'll talk about that as well. We'll talk about Brad Lambert. We'll talk about Adam Lowry signing an extension earlier this week. And there's a game today. The Winnipeg Jets take on the Minnesota Wild down at Canada Life Center. The Wild are red hot, by the way. They're 8-1-1 in their last 10. So we're going to talk a bit about today's game as well. But so much to get to. Shout out to everyone for joining us. Oh, and I almost forgot. Shout out Dallas Pauls, who's in the chat. We're also going to talk about the Manitoba Moose, who have won 6 straight games. Liz and I were at the game yesterday. They won 3-2 over the Chicago Wolves. So lots to get to on today's show. I'll try not to forget it all. I think I got it all in the intro there. Let's bring in my co-host, Lyss Houde. How are you doing this Sunday morning, Lyss?
I'm doing well. You gave a shout out to Dallas Pauls about the Manitoba Moose. Happy belated birthday to Dallas. It was his birthday at WST Ticket Pack night on Friday. Doing well. The Moose, or not the Moose. Oh my gosh, we're great start early this morning. The Leafs are in shambles, so I am doing well kind of outside of the Winnipeg market as well. But like you said, Moose on a 6-game heater. I can make it about the Manitoba Moose and not feel bad about it. It's great. And oh my gosh, there's just so much in kind of Jets land, Jets adjacent land to talk about. So we kind of always joke, we have a jam-packed show today. Today, it's not jam-packed in terms of like guests and cool stuff and all this crazy things going on, but we just have so much to talk about. It's no bells and whistles today. It's just
no bells and whistles
for now, for the next hour. So
we're
glad everyone's here to join us.
The content that people want, Lyss, straight to the point. And look, I loved seeing this. I didn't see this photo. I don't know if you did, Lyss, on our social media accounts, but Winnipeg Sports Talk Ticket Pack night on Friday against the Carolina Hurricanes. Shout out to everyone in this photo who was there in section 316. I hope you guys had a great time. I know the Jets weren't able to pull out a win, and now 0-2 on the season for the WST Ticket Pack night was home opener against Dallas. And now tonight against Carolina, we will need a bounce back moving forward here. But shout out to everyone who bought tickets, showed up. Really, really appreciate the support. You and I were down there pregame, Lyss. Nice to talk to people around the Winnipeg Sports Talk community. And yeah, I really hope everyone had a great time. Let's quickly, Lyss, you and I did do the post game on Friday. But for anyone who didn't see it, let's maybe quickly recap our thoughts from that game. Nikolai Ehlers with the return. There was a tribute video. He had the primary assist on the eventual game winner as well. Gabe Vilardi scores 2 goals. Josh Morrissey scores a goal. The Jets play maybe one of their better 5-on-5 games of the season, and it wasn't good enough as they lose 4-3 to the Hurricanes. What's kind of your quick synopsis of that game Friday against the Hurricanes?
Yeah, there's a lot that I liked from different components of the Jets game. I think that there were some really interesting comments from the players post-game that sort of made me want to watch that game again in terms of kind of what their observations were. They were really hard on their second period. There was a lot to like in the first period. They came out the gate well, which, as you know, scoring 16 seconds in for the Carolina Hurricanes was not the way that this team would have wanted to start the Eric Comrie is your starter era. So the fact that they were able to kind of bounce back pretty quickly from that, not that this group has given me much reason to think that they can't be resilient, but I was a little bit worried at first that the game was over before it even started in that regard. So it wasn't, which was really, really good. And then the second period, which they've kind of continued to have a bit of a tough time with, wasn't great. Sidebar, I'm wondering, I'm going to need to start watching a bit more closely for this. I wonder if there's anything to do with the fact that the benches are so far away from their D zone and the team isn't that fast, and you have to add that little bit of extra skating in, plus the fact that they're a cycle team and not a rush team. So it makes it very difficult to make the changes that you want to change, because the bench kind of spills into the ozone a little bit and it gets a little complicated. I wonder if there's anything about that, because they come back in a third period regularly and have a decent showing. And I really like their third period because I thought that they showed a lot of pushback. Scott Arniel mentioned specifically below the goal line, and that's what I wanted to talk about in that regard, was there were so many times that they would lose puck battles. They won a lot of puck battles, but when they lost puck battles, what you often see when the stakes are a little bit lower in the game is that everyone starts to retreat a little bit, right? You have your F1 who stays up and starts kind of as the Connor and I were arguing about this, the higher the low forechecker, depends on the way you want to address it or look at it. But the guy who's kind of up with the puck there before the breakout pass starts, and everyone sort of starts to retreat a little bit to kind of neutralize the breakout a bit. But the Jets would put 2 or 3 forwards in on that puck immediately, and they were just kind of like white on rice, like absolutely smothering those pucks below the goal line, and then kind of turning controlled Carolina possession into another puck battle, which then they would win, push back to their D-men, and kind of keep going on the cycle. Scott Arniel kind of had a gripe with this shot selection from the defensemen. He thought they hit a lot of shin pads and all those different things, which I think was a really good point, because he didn't say this, but I'll say it. It kind of erases the work that your forwards were doing to kind of dig those pucks out and give you some extra chances to do something, and then they wouldn't. So I thought it was a really interesting game for a lot of different reasons, but I liked a lot of what I saw from their effort in the third period. Maybe not so much how they capitalized on some of the extra possession they created for themselves, but the fact that they were able to do that against a team like Carolina that has so many good possession players, I was really happy with kind of the game as a whole.
For sure. I'm with you on that. And you and I also debated a little bit on the post game, in the grand scheme of the Hellebuyck news came out earlier that day. They're playing a team that's a wagon at 5-on-5. They're starting Eric Comrie. They give up a goal on the first shot of the game. Relatively speaking, like, they played a really good game at 5-on-5, in my opinion. Not so much in the second period, but the first and the third, I thought they were the better team. There weren't too many penalties in the game either, but special teams did sink them in the minimal amount of penalties that there were. So you kind of made the point that maybe their best 5-on-5 game isn't good enough, sort of thing. I kind of made the point that, like, we've been waiting for this team to get to their 5-on-5 game. They finally got to it, and even though it's in a loss, and even though it's at the night of Connor Hellebuyck being out a month plus, it's still maybe a bit of a moral victory for me. That's kind of how I'm viewing that one. Carolina's the top team in the East. You lost by 1 goal to a really good team at home. Maybe this is just going to be a theme going forward where the Jets play well, but it's just not good enough because they don't have the MVP in net. They don't have.
Yeah, and we'll see it. And maybe because that was what our argument was, is I was like, if that's not good enough, but the counter is, yes, the Winnipeg Jets probably win that game more often than they lose that game, but they didn't. So you kind of need to look at the real results a little bit there as well. But I think the other way you could look at it is maybe it's the start of a trend, right? I mentioned on the post-game show that I thought that the Columbus game and the Carolina game were the best back-to-back string of games that they've played all year. I liked their performance kind of as an aggregate through the full 60 in both of those, more than I've liked most of their games so far. They were back-to-back games. So maybe they're starting to kind of pick it up and they're moving in the right direction, right? So if that's the case, then, it's a good thing. But I do have a lot of questions about kind of the ceiling of this team. And we've talked about this and we'll continue to talk about it until they prove us otherwise.
For sure. 100% agree. Waiter says Sandberg was awful. Are we allowed to criticize him? Not on this program. We're not. Not gonna happen. No, I'm kidding.
You guys should have heard Connor. Every now and then there was like the odd play he would make, and Connor's like, the brand.
the brand.
It's
cooked. He did have a few, let's say, vintage Dylan Sandberg plays, before the top 4 breakout. What did we always talk about with Sandberg? Oh, he's great defensively, yada, 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 but the poise with the puck isn't there, the turnovers, all of those things. He did have a few of those where he turned the puck over quite a bit, but this is what I said to you, Lyss, a few weeks ago too. Dylan Sandberg, good game or a bad game visually, you go and look at natural stat trick at the end of the game, the Jets are out-chancing, out-shooting, out-shot attempting everything their opponent with him on the ice every single night. Like, it's just ridiculous, the positive possession numbers that he just, pumps out game in and game out. Even when that you go look at the Carolina game, 5-on-5, Dylan Sandberg up over 60%, chances, high chances, all of those things. So it's like, Yes, he wasn't great. He turned the puck over quite a bit. He got beat pretty badly on the very first goal of the game. You can't let Jordan Staal turn you inside out like that and get to the middle of the ice on a rush chance. But the analytics were still strong. So it's just kind of one of those things where you have to take the eye test with the analytics as a tool and take a look at that. But I will say definitely not his best game on Friday night. But let's get to, I brought it up there. The news came out the morning of that game against the Carolina Hurricanes. Connor Hellebuyck out 4 to 6 weeks, undergoing an arthroscopic knee procedure, undergoing it today. Scott O'Neill said yesterday that he was undergoing surgery tomorrow, which is now, that was yesterday. This is WST Sunday Live, not WST Saturday Live. Yesterday, he would have underwent the surgery. Lyss, I know this came as a shock to everyone. There was no, Connor Hellebuyck practiced Wednesday. This was not to be expected that he was going to be, missing 4 to 6 weeks. What was kind of your initial reaction? Were you, very doom and gloom? The Jets are screwed. Here goes their season kind of thing, or were you more interested in how they manage this going forward?
No, you know what? I think what I'll do is I'm going to take this because I'll be honest, my initial reactions were not that negative at all. And I think here sort of some of the positives that I sort of took away from this. The first one, this is a galaxy brain way of getting less games under Connor Hellebuyck's belt for this season, right?
That is
not
true.
that this is a relaxation in Cabo or anything like that. Like, this is rehab and it's going to be intense and it's going to be tough, but it's also a break. It is a break. It's a different break because your body is not able to kind of perform at the level you want. All that, I don't need to explain surgery recovery to you guys. I think we all understand that can look different for different people and everything.
If you want to go for
but
it.
Yeah, follow for WST Sunday Live medical stuff from a girl with a business degree. We'll do that. But I think that was something that was kind of an initial kind of tongue-in-cheek sort of thought that I had there. And the timeline, I actually thought was, and bear with me for a second, almost ideal in terms of if this player has to miss a period of time. I think this is an ideal period of time. If the Winnipeg Jets can stay afloat kind of over this period of time, the hole that they will dig themselves is not too small to get out of, too deep to get out of, in my opinion. If they dig themselves a hole that's so deep that they can't get out of it, it's a catch-22 because they were never going to be good enough to contend anyway, so it doesn't matter. If they can't win enough games with their backups in net to kind of stay in the playoff hunt, then playoff hopes were never really on the table for actually making a push anyway, so it doesn't matter to me. But I think if it was an even shorter period of time, I don't know if we would learn as much about this team as I anticipate we're going to. I think 4 to 6 weeks is a very long sample, especially with how condensed the Jets schedule is, to really figure out what some of their team weaknesses are, where they get exposed the most, all these different things that I've thought that Connor Hellebuyck has really helped conceal for this team for pretty much his entire career. And I don't know if I've ever brought this up on the show because it's like an insane take. I'm sure I have because you guys have heard my most insane takes. But I kind of have this like galaxy brain take of Connor Hellebuyck is the reason the Jets haven't won a Stanley Cup, because at the end of the Paul Maurice era, when he was playing kind of his earlier years of Vezina caliber goaltending, I think that there were a ton of holes on this team that, they were winning a ton of games by 1 goal when Connor Hellebuyck was saving like 3.5 goals above expected per game and stuff like that, where it didn't force the hand of the Winnipeg Jets as much as I think they needed to have their hand forced in order to actually make some changes to make this a contending and winning group. So that's kind of like a little bit that I have. But I think that this can sort of show reflections of that, where it's like, okay, what are the big kind of weaknesses, the glaring holes, all that sort of stuff on this team? They're going to be put on full display here. Like, you don't have anything to hide behind anymore. So it's going to be a long enough period of time to get to know that. If it was just 2 games, 3 games, 4 games, whatever, you could be a lot of randomness, all these different factors involved. I think this is a long enough period of time to really learn about this team and hopefully make some changes that need to be made if that's the case. But then also, I think that if they're able to kind of, rocket 500 or whatever you want, they should still be able to be in the playoff hunt after the new year starts. So that's my positive take, because I know that the reality is that this sucks, but those are kind of my initial optimistic takes.
Yeah, for sure. The biggest thing that I'm definitely on the other side of this in terms of my initial reaction. I think many people's was they're screwed. Like, wow, Connor Hellebuyck reigning MVP out a month. It's not good for sure. The biggest thing you were saying there was like, if they can find a way to go 500, I don't know if they can, like that's the biggest thing for me. And you know what? This is where, going back to Friday's game against Carolina, if they play that way at 5-on-5, they'll find a way to go 500. They'll be just fine. But is that performance replicable over this 4 to 6 period stretch? Are they going to change the way they play because Eric Comrie's in net? Are they going to play more of a defensive style, sit back more in the defensive zone, try not to give up any chances and not take risks offensively because they have Eric Comrie and Thomas Milic in net for certain games? I don't know. The biggest thing for me, yes, I agree. If we are sitting there, 4 to 6 weeks brings us basically right to the Christmas break around the New Year. If we're sitting there, the Christmas break, New Year, and the Jets went 500 without Connor Hellebuyck, that is a win, in my opinion. That is, you take that all day. Your star netminder, MVP level netminder, 3-time Vezina winner misses a month, and you go 500 in that time. Absolutely, that's a win. I don't know. We'll see. Again, if they can replicate that 5-on-5 game that they played on Friday, I have no issue with that. But we'll see if they can.
It'll be really interesting.
It's been inconsistent this year.
No, for sure. And I think that kind of a big part of all of this is that the games are really, really close together, and the schedule is kind of interesting. A couple of Eastern Conference games that are kind of against those opponents you don't know as well, and all this sort of stuff. Like, the schedule is when we're starting to get to, going into this season. We talked about how grueling this year was because the season doesn't really get extended, but the break is extended. So but in my opinion, at least up until this point, through 20 games of the season, the schedules look pretty normal for the Jets. Haven't played a ton of back-to-backs, have had a bunch of 2-game breaks, all these different things. December is where it starts to get to the, oh, wow, okay, like there's a lot. So there's a lot of hockey to be played here. But I think the thing that's, like, the Jets have been pretty fortunate with long-term injury luck, knock on wood, over the last few years. You have guys who miss in the 4 to 6 week range or whatever. And with Connor Hellebuyck,
sure. We've talked about his workload every year. He's played over 60 games because he's healthy, and he's playing 3 out of every 4 games all the entire time, every year.
I think the thing that I'm just kind of stuck on and like trying not to think about too much is, like, I remember last year kind of going into the season, you had all these different teams, where do you tier them, whatever, and the New Jersey Devils were kind of in this category of people being like, this is the year they take a step, they could be a contender, the Metro is pretty wide open, all of these different things. And then Jack Hughes got hurt, and pretty much everyone just immediately objectively was like, but there's always next year. And I was joking to you that this is what happens in the NFL with, like, Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals are like, well, this season is a wash. It's over after, week 3 or whatever. And like, this would be the same. Like, if Connor McDavid were to miss X number, like the Oilers would be cooked. The Oilers may already be cooked. Who's to say? But that hasn't been, in my opinion, the general reaction from kind of the public yet, because I think a lot of people who don't follow the Jets that closely, when they think of the Jets, they're like, it's Connor Hellebuyck and his band of merry men. And so I think that a lot of those people, like, what I would have expected the reaction to be is, well, it's like the graphic of the Winnipeg Jets have been eliminated from playoff contention or whatever. And I don't know how much of that I've actually seen, because I think the injury recovery window is narrow enough. If he was out for 2 months or more, like, I think I would be in it's so over category, I think. But I don't know. But I'm also fascinated by the weaknesses of this team. I always have been. It's always something that I've kind of really, like, honed in on and been fascinated to kind of learn more about. So maybe it's like a kind of like masochistic,
what if it doesn't bring
way to be like,
what if it doesn't bring their weaknesses to the forefront and they just play well at 5-on-5?
How could it not?
They just play well at 5-on-5, but suck because they're not getting the goaltending.
I don't think that that's possible. They play well at 5-on-5, but they suck. Like, I think that this team, when they play well at 5-on-5, gives up like 4 shots in a period. Like, I think that if they play well, like when the Jets are playing at their best, Connor Hellebuyck's workload is significantly minimized. Like, I think that they're such a good defensive team that when kind of the thing with Connor Hellebuyck that's been so important for them is that when they've had mistakes, he's made it so that those mistakes weren't as costly as they could be. And I think
True.
that if they are able to kind of play their structure and all that sort of stuff, they shouldn't have as many of those moments. They might, but I just don't see a world in which they play like they did against Carolina and they lose that game more than half the time. I just don't.
For sure. But
I also don't see a world in which they play that game every single game for the next 4 to 6 weeks. So I don't know.
Right. And the sustainability of that too. And yeah, Tyson Ducharme saying Comrie isn't Stu Skinner. Agreed. Like I have more faith in Comrie. I know he had an .857 save percentage in that game against Carolina, but I actually think that he's a very quality backup. You look around the league, these teams that have their workhorse starters, their backups are not that good. And Eric Comrie, the past 2 seasons combined, has a .912 save percentage in these last 2 years combined with the Winnipeg Jets. So I have faith in Eric Comrie. I think maybe where my questions more come in is about the sustainability of the Jets 5-on-5 game so far this season. But we'll have to see. We'll have to see that. And the other side of this list is that Thomas Milic was called up. He's probably going to get a game. Or not a game. A game, let me finish that sentence. In the next week or so, the Jets are going on a 5-game road trip. There's a back-to-back in there. Carolina on the Friday, Nashville on the Saturday. Gotta think Thomas Milic makes his NHL debut on Saturday in Nashville. And then, there are a few more back-to-backs as we get into December and stuff like that. So you got to think Thomas Milic will get in at some point, but I absolutely think that Eric Comrie can keep this team in a spot to compete when Connor Hellebuyck comes back and right around the playoff line. I mean, right now they've played less games actually than a lot of the teams around them, so they're outside of the playoff line, but they're going to make up those games very, very quickly. I mean, after today's game, they actually have a 2-day break. But yeah, they've played 20 games, have 24 points, and are 4th in the wild card. So outside, and the Minnesota Wild have also become red hot too, going 8-1-1 in their last 10, and they've leapfrogged them in the Central Division list.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think that like the position the Jets are in right now, like this would have been if last year at the end of the 15-1 stretch or whatever it was for the Jets, you've built up quite a cushion. They don't have that flexibility right now with where they're at in the standings. So there is something to be said for that. And like you said, kind of teams that are on their tail are pretty hot. But I guess maybe the last thing I'll say about the kind of Connor Hellebuyck thing, and we're going to continue to talk about this and monitor this, right? Because it's the most interesting storyline on this team by far. And, Connor and I were joking during the game that it's like only we could be sitting at this game watching and talking about the way that Cole Koepke forechecks comparatively to, all this sort of stuff. Like we do love talking about kind of our depth pieces, but at the end of the day, the stars bring the most interesting stories when they're on fire, when they're not performing, or when they can't perform at all because they're out. I'm interested to see if anything changes in the world of Wade Flaherty. I've learned over the years, and I think we've all learned over the years that, Matt Prefontaine is the Connor McDavid of video coaches, and also Wade Flaherty is the Connor McDavid of goaltending coaches. And, how many backup goalies have the Jets brought into the organization and then sent on their way to, vie for starting jobs after being a goaltender here, and then
I don't think Brossoit has played a game yet.
Leave.
I just want to quickly jump in. Yeah, Laurent Brossoit last played a game in 2023-24 for the Jets. I think got hip surgery and has yet to play for the Chicago Blackhawks. He got like a $3 million like 1A 1B contract. Hasn't played yet.
Right. Yeah. So we talk about how the Jets provide a really good environment for kind of goalies to come in and stuff. And, the way that Eric Comrie has been worked with and trained and all these sorts of things, I don't know his relationship with Wade Flaherty. I don't know what they're doing, but Eric Comrie is the backup to a Vezina caliber goaltender. He knows that. So I'm fascinated to see kind of what Wade does with him to kind of help prepare him for this challenge, because I think that he's one of the best in the league at what he does. So I think that kind of what their training regimen looks like for the next little bit could also really help Comrie kind of step up his game to the level he needs to be at as well.
For sure. I agree with that. The Jets, the goalies both rave about how good of a coach Wade Flaherty is. So that's definitely going to be something we're going to monitor, as well as the Connor Hellebuyck injury. This is going to be something that we can talk about at length over the next couple of of weeks, months here, month and a bit, if you will. The Jets are going to play the Minnesota Wild today, who, like I said, are red hot. Then they're going to go on the road and take on the Washington Capitals, the Carolina Hurricanes again, the Nashville Predators. And then we get into December. I'm just kind of flipping through the schedule here. We get into December. The Jets continue that road trip. They take on the Buffalo Sabres, the Montreal Canadiens. Let's bring up the schedule here if I can get it up in time. They take on the Buffalo Sabres again, front end of a back-to-back, and then they take on the Edmonton Oilers. You got to think Thomas Milic gets the home Sabres game, and they save Comrie for the road Oilers game in that back-to-back.
You'd think so.
You would think. So. And then 4-game homestand, Dallas, Boston, Washington, Ottawa, very good teams. St. Louis, Colorado, Utah to bring us into the holiday break. And then coming out of the holiday break, the Minnesota Wild as well. So there are spots here for Thomas Milic. I think the Nashville game.
Interesting question.
Yeah.
About some of this stuff. Just in terms of, I'm looking at that homestand of all those Eastern Conference teams kind of coming through here. I don't know what their schedules look like because I may be a sicko, but I don't know every team's schedule kind of on like the back of my hand.
Fair.
But I always think about this. We always joke about kind of the grueling California road trip of the early 2010s when you would have to kind of go play Anaheim and then San Jose and then LA or whatever order. And it was like, oh my gosh, like you just never catch a break. When the Minnesota Wild are red hot, I wonder how that changes because I'm sure that these teams coming through, if not all of them, some of them are also getting a Minnesota Wild game, whether it's the night before, the night after, or maybe a couple days in between. Not every Eastern team that comes through here plays them as well, but it's more likely that there's a Minnesota game tacked onto a Winnipeg Jets game than maybe some other opponents. And I wonder while the Wild are red hot,
nice.
If that bodes well for the Winnipeg Jets at all to either get more exhausted teams or have teams that are trying to save their horses a little bit or anything like that. And I think that a lot of teams kind of from an external perspective probably right now look at both the Minnesota Wild and the Winnipeg Jets in a similar light where it's like, hey, you can't take a night off against either of these teams. They're both really good. I don't know if anyone thinks that the Winnipeg Jets are miles better or miles worse than the Minnesota Wild, but I wonder if them being really good fares well for the Winnipeg Jets in terms of strength of schedule. I don't know. It's always something I think a little bit about with the Wild.
For sure, because a lot of teams do that back-to-back, whether it's playing the Jets and then the Wild or vice versa. And the Wild being better absolutely would help the Jets in that scenario. But where it doesn't help the Jets is in the standings where they've already leapfrogged them and are red hot right now. Let me just quickly run through the Minnesota Wild and their 8-1-1 stretch here. On Friday, they beat the Penguins. On Wednesday, they beat the Carolina Hurricanes in a shootout.
They kicked the Penguins, right?
Yeah, 5-0. They destroyed them.
Yeah.
Then last Sunday, they beat the Golden Knights 3-2 in overtime. They beat the Ducks 2-0. They lost to the Sharks 2-1 in OT. That's their one OT loss. They beat the Flames 2-0. They beat the Islanders 5-2. They lost in regulation to the Hurricanes 4-3. They beat the Preds 3-2 in overtime. The Canucks 5-2 and lost to the Penguins on October 30th. And then the game before that, the Jets beat the Wild in overtime. So since the Jets played the Wild and Kyle Connor scored that overtime winner to give them a 4-3 win, Connor Hellebuyck stole that game too, made over 30 saves. The Wild have gone in an absolute tear. They've lost 2 games in regulation, 1 in overtime, and have won 8 or 9 games here. Quickly doing the math, it's been, they've found it after some early season struggles for sure. And today's game, we'll talk about it maybe later on in the program. The Jets will need to replicate that 5-on-5 game that they got to on Friday if they want to defeat the Minnesota Wild today. Not sure who's starting for them, the Minnesota Wild, because both of their goaltenders are really good. Jesper Wallstedt had a crazy shutout streak going in that game against going into that game against the Hurricanes, and the Hurricanes broke it. Philip Gustafsson played on Friday against the Penguins. He had a 19-save shutout, so we'll see who starts for them, but I don't really, in terms of, who's more likely for the Jets to beat, I don't think it really matters. They have a very good tandem, and both goaltenders are very good. Lyss, let's move on from the Connor Hellebuyck thing. I'm sure that's going to be something we talk about every single Sunday for the next 4 to 6 weeks. Let's move on to news that I didn't see coming, which falls under the same category as the Connor Hellebuyck one. More news that I didn't see coming. Frank Saravalli sending out this tweet on November 20th. League sources say the Winnipeg Jets have given 2022 first-round pick Brad Lambert's representation to permission, to find a trade partner. Lambert, 21 years old, has 1 goal in 4 games for the Jets in limited minutes this season. Lyss, thoughts? Initial reaction? Takeaways?
Okay.
Questions? Concerns?
First of all, I don't know the last time I've seen a player wants out tweet, rumor, whatever, phrased like this. I think it's so funny that it's like they've given him permission to go find his own. They're like, dude, we don't care. Like, we're not dealing with this right now. Like, this is not my problem. You figure it out.
Yeah.
You want to show up, you come knock on my door and say, Mom, can I go for a sleepover? You say, Mom, can I get traded to the Philadelphia Flyers for Owen Tippett? Like, we're like, oh, okay, let's look into it. But I think it's really funny. It's like, it's so here, damn, coded.
Yeah.
Like, okay, like, just fine, whatever you want.
Go for it.
But in terms of the actual player and the state of his interest in remaining with this organization, this guy wants to play in the NHL. And look, I think that it depends who you are, it depends where you're at in your career, depends what your priorities are, what your motivations are, all these different things. But I think it's fair. I don't know how much traction he's going to get, because I think that maybe that's how he feels. But I think that the reality of the situation that he's in, it just doesn't make any sense for him to be playing NHL minutes right now. So if he thinks that he wants that and deserves that, then he probably does have to look externally. In terms of this specific moment, this specific rumor, this specific player, whatever, I'm kind of whatever about it. This was always a swing to either hit or miss player for me. I was never expecting him to, pan out okay. I thought he was going to absolutely boom or bust. So if it ends up being bust, life goes on. I'm whatever. But I think my biggest concern is just the pattern. I feel like we're starting to see with the fact that like the Winnipeg Jets haven't developed a legitimate center since I was in middle school. Like, like I think that there's a lot of questions I have around, and Morgan Barron had some comments to the media. It wasn't actually around this, but the whole idea of like, hey, like I understand like it can be really difficult to kind of vie for a roster spot for a team that's kind of in win now mode. And that's sort of the difficult part of being in this Winnipeg Jets soft retool, whatever, never really going the full rebuild route, is that you never really have an opportunity for
I disagree.
Players to kind of come in.
Vlad Nemeskov's currently on the second line.
No, but I'm saying it's an excuse to not let players come in. I'm not saying you should or shouldn't, but it is a more difficult environment in that regard. But then you could say that a rebuilding team is a difficult environment as well, because you have 19-year-old Connor Bedard losing every single game and losing his mind and whatever last year. So there's pros and cons to all of it, but I do understand that it's really easy to kind of make that excuse to not give young players those reps. But I will say I commend the management of the Winnipeg Jets for what my understanding and my interpretation of how this year is going is just that they've kind of realized that and recognized that. And what they've decided is the solution to that is creating a winning AHL culture and making a really strong AHL team so that the players who aren't making the big squad don't have to be depressed, because they can actually go play meaningful minutes and play good games. I think that based on the guys they signed on July 1st, Walker Duehr, Akil Clegg, Phil DiGiuseppe, all these different players they brought in, that became a priority for them, because I think they understand that this might kind of reach a boiling point with guys like Brad Lambert and other prospects. Someone in the chat is saying, Lyss says you never go full rebuild. You will never hear me say that. I am not team soft retool or whatever, but I think that is kind of the route the Jets have gone. So I think that I like some of their solutions they've sort of tried to come up with, and this is a really long rant, but when you make it about the management of a moose, unfortunately, I will be doing this. I think that, it's an interesting situation, and as kind of a piece of a bigger picture, it's more concerning to me. But as an individual, one prospect saying I would like to seek out a trade partner, okay, whatever, I don't know, but I think I have more concerns kind of about the larger all of this.
Sure. Doug brings up a good side note here. Is Nemeskov really on the second line, or is that the third line? The lines did change. We'll talk about that going into today's game. That they skated in a different the way the game ended on Friday. So we'll talk about that when previewing today's game a little bit later on. But Lyss, the Brad Lambert thing for me is really interesting, because I've been spending, November 20th, the tweet came out, it's 23rd, the last 3 days trying to figure out what his market could be, because here's let's rewind for a little bit to the draft where Brad Lambert was viewed going into his draft year as a top 5, top 7 pick in that draft. Played the year out in a Finnish league, did not get many minutes, did not produce well in those minutes, so slid in the first round. What was it? 29, 30 teams passed on him. And the Winnipeg Jets took him knowing that there was high boom potential and a high bust potential. He's a high ceiling, low floor prospect, a swing for the fences, if you will. That's what Brad Lambert was.
Connor, last time they had 2 first-round picks.
They did the same thing. They took Laine, and then Logan Stanley was the high boom potential, high upside, whatever. Yeah, they did the exact same thing. So here's the thing. You look at this Frank Saravalli tweet, you look at the comments, and you look at the quote tweets. All of them are Rangers fans, Flyers fans, whatever, saying, oh my God, Chris Drury, Rangers GM, get on this. Danny Briere, Flyers GM, get on this. This is awesome, because people think Brad Lambert as this high upside, high boom potential prospect. But let's think about this from the GM's point of view. 30 of them just passed on him 2 years ago. They know that he's this high boom, high bust potential. Why would a GM give up and here's another part of this. The Winnipeg Jets aren't just moving Brad Lambert for a 4th round pick. Like, that's not what's going to happen here. They drafted him in the first round. They would rather keep him than just ship him out for nothing. Why would a GM, and this might be like clipped later and dunked on for me, why would a GM trade like an impact player in the NHL right now for a player who has this high boom, high bust potential, who hasn't shown anything in his minutes?
I think that's a really interesting. I never really thought about it that way. The whole idea of 2 years ago, they said no. And granted, I will say no, but there were a lot of other players in that draft that were much better than him. I think more of the ones that were a little bit later, like the picks 15 through whatever and all that sort of stuff. But you're right that 2 years ago, they said no, thank you.
I saw multiple Flyers fans.
What has he done in the last 2 years to make him go, oh yes,
he's
now
more
please.
likely
now
to
please.
he's more likely to hit the boom than the bust. No way.
Interesting.
And I see Flyers. I saw multiple Flyers fans. So this isn't coming from me. Multiple Flyers fans in the comments of that and the quote tweets mentioning Owen Tippett.
Mm-hmm.
The Jets would be accepting that in a heartbeat. Are you kidding me? Owen Tippett is a top 6 forward right now.
Well, but then your question is, should Brad Lambert be a top 6 forward right now? Because the thing is, we talk about, you need these reps and all these different things to kind of get, if he got the leash that Logan Stanley got, do you think that he would be a top 6 impact piece for this Winnipeg Jets team? I think that there's fully a chance that if he got the leash that other players have gotten, whether it's with this team or other teams, that he would be an upgrade on a lot of the players they have playing these kind of middle 6 roles right now on the Jets. I think that there's a skill set there that has the potential to do that. And that game where he scored, when he was playing on a 4th line, which again, we could even talk about that, where if the Winnipeg Jets were to configure their lines a bit more based on the personnel that they have, as opposed to roles that they think they should have, having kind of an energy line that plays against other 4th lines of a Morgan Barron, Cole Koepke, Parker Ford, Brad Lambert, kind of any combination of those things, that actually could be a good NHL environment to develop this prospect in.
For sure.
I think that there's a lot of there are so many excuses and explanations for why this player shouldn't play that all have enough validity that you can go, yeah, fair enough. But I think I kind of just want to push back on a lot of them a lot more, because it's not that I think that this player has to or should or will or can't or whatever amount to something huge and great, but I just don't know that this has been the right environment to even see if that's the case.
Sure. And I'm totally with you on that. And here's the thing too, we were talking about, and Scott O'Neill mentioned it, Scott O'Neill's first year as head coach, last year's training camp, not this year's training camp, last year, we spent all of the offseason, all of training camp talking about the battle for 2C. Vlad Nemesnikov versus Brad Lambert. And Scott O'Neill was asked about it and even said, yeah, Brad Lambert has a chance here. Didn't win the job, went down to the AHL, scored 7 goals in 61 games. This year has been up, played 4 games, had a goal I actually thought showed pretty well in the 3 games that he played right before he got sent down. But it's this weird mix, and you make a great point, Lyss, of the environment not being great, but also the prospect not breaking the door down and being incredible enough to be well, we got to send down Tanner Pearson because Brad Lambert's just so good. Like
Yeah, and
that's
they
just not
have
happening.
team control over him for long enough to now. I think that if he gets a full season in the AHL this year, like you have kind of the two polarizing environments here where again I'm putting a little bit too much stock into a 6-game win streak because it's not like they had a really great start to the season or anything, but you have kind of two extremes of environments that you could, have a player like Brad Lambert perform in, where it's one, if the team is terrible and you have to carry the offense on your back and you just go out there and your coach is like, man, I need you to score, and you do whatever you want to score. That was kind of the environment of last year. That's not what happened. Fair enough. Not everyone's going to perform in an environment like that. I totally get that. Then the other environment is if you have a massive kind of rising tide lifts all boats situation where the team is really strong, great defensemen, great depth, great high-end pieces, whatever, and can you kind of play up to the par of all of them? So if Brad Lambert plays a full-ish season in the AHL this year and has a similar kind of stat line to last year, that's, I think, when I'm really going to start kind of putting up the red flag and being like, all right, what do we even have here anymore? But I think that you need to give him a little bit of time because people like always make excuses about how terrible the Moose were last year. And I think it's just something to key into. I don't know if it's necessarily excuse, explanation, whatever, because certain players thrive in those environments and they kind of are like, all right, if no one else is going to do it, what can I do? What can I showcase in a lot of this open space and kind of go from there. So I don't know what the resolution is. I don't know when we'll see a resolution. This could amount to nothing. We were joking before. There was a period of time where Logan Stanley was wanting to find a trade partner as well. And now he's kind of a mainstay on the team. So it could end up being nothing at all, but definitely something that we will kind of continue to watch.
For sure. Absolutely. And it is something that we'll continue to watch. And I don't know on the point of if we'll see a resolution to this or not. I also can't figure out. I've been trying to figure out the market for Brad Lambert, looking at a fan perspective and having, tons of fan bases quote tweet Frank Saravalli and be like, yes, please, I want this player, versus the NHL GMs that NHL GMs notoriously do not want to attach themselves to any kind of risk or give up assets for any kind of risk. Unless you're, I guess, a San Jose or Chicago. Those teams are, fighting for a playoff spot right now, but you know what I mean? Unless you're one of the...
Or if the guy's like on waivers or something, you don't give up stuff for the risk.
Yeah. Right, like are you going to trade... And this kind of goes hand in hand too, and maybe I'm thinking in real time on why I don't think anything will happen. The Jets aren't just packing Lambert's bags and shipping him out for a 5th-round pick. They would want to trade him for an impact player who can help this window right now. He's a 1st-round pick. He's only 2 years removed from that. So in-house, under team control, you don't want to move that. Which NHL GM out there is going to want to move that impact piece that can help your team right now for a boomer bust prospect in Brad Lambert? I don't know.
It's really funny because I think that, how sometimes a guy who is like 23 years old or whatever, people will be like, but he was a 1st-round draft pick. And you're like, okay, but he's been terrible for 5 years. Like, I don't know what you want me to say about that kind of thing. I feel like Brad Lambert gets a little bit of that rep for like what his reputation was when he was like 15. Like a lot of people who don't really follow the Jets or, kind of forgot about the 2022 draft or whatever, they'll just be like scrolling Twitter and they see Brad Lambert looking for a trade partner or whatever. And they're like, Brad Lambert, like when he was like 15, like wasn't he considered to be like a top 3 prospect of his age?
Well, going into his draft year, he was supposed to be a top 5 pick or top 7.
Yeah. And like before that, I think he was kind of rated even higher and he's sort of like fallen off a little bit, whatever. I think a lot of people are thinking more about that, about the player that he was considered to be kind of at 15, 16. And then I think kind of my point to that is like, okay, so maybe you think that the skill set is there or whatever, but you think that it's worth it. But it is funny. I think that a lot of what is getting external folks excited about this is a reputation that he hasn't really developed on his own in the last few years. It's more so what they've kind of crafted for him, if you know what I mean.
Yes, I'm with you on that. Like, I don't know, even after he was drafted, he went to the AHL for a little bit. Then they sent him down to the Seattle Thunderbirds where he was awesome. 38 points in 26 regular season games, 26 points in 17 playoff games in a championship run with the Seattle Thunderbirds, right? Came back to the Jets, played one game, played that whole season with the Moose where he was awesome that year too. 55 points in 64 games, 21 goals, drove the offense on a Moose team that was in and around the playoffs, might have made the playoffs that year. I think I'm getting my years mixed up. They did make the playoffs.
It says he played 2 years ago?
Yeah, 2023-24.
They played play-in games against Texas.
They played 2.
And
and lost. So Brad Lambert was good that year.
Yeah, so
and then
he
this
was
past year in a bad environment,
But they weren't even that good that year, though. Like, that was a bit like... We don't have to
So
get into 2023 Moose lore, but
no,
yeah,
we
like
don't.
it's
But it's I don't know. And then this past year, bad environment or Brad Lambert, what chicken or the egg? 7 goals in 61 games, 35 points. This year, 1 goal in 4 NHL games, no goals in 4 AHL games. So I don't know. It
it's like
just seems
4
like
AHL games already.
yeah,
Holy shiz.
yeah. Yeah. So the WHL year where he was awesome in that playoff run into the AHL year where he was awesome that year,
Yep.
55 points, 21 goals. Since then, Brad Lambert has scored 8 goals across like 80 NHL or 70 NHL and AHL games, So it's just been interesting in terms of
Yeah.
Brad Lambert's development, which
Well, and that's
we
why
knew was
we're
the
having so
case.
much trouble getting
Figuring this out.
pulse,
Yeah.
like whatever, because it's just like, yeah, I don't know.
I don't know. Anyways, yeah, let's move on. That's something that I don't even know if we'll get a resolution to, like you said, Liz. So this whole conversation
It
might have been for
literally
nothing.
could be the only tweet that we ever hear about it, and then like life goes
Yeah.
on. Who's to say?
Brad Lambert might be a Winnipeg Jet in a month. Who knows? You just really never know. So let's move on from the Brad Lambert discussion. Another thing that Liz and I wanted to do before we get to, we've got more stuff coming up here. We've got our Chud's Power Sports Power Poll. We've got an exciting one today. We're going to talk about the Adam Lowry extension a little bit. We did our top 5 Adam Lowry moments up until this point in his career. So that is coming up on the Chud's Power Sports Power Poll. Adam Lowry just signed a 5-year extension. Super excited for that. We've got trending up, down, burning questions, all of this coming up in just a little bit. But right now, we are at the quarter season, point here with the Winnipeg Jets. They've played 20 games. Where are we at with a lot of these players? Listen, I wanted to do some quarter season report cards. We're going to do these now. We're going to do these at mid-season, maybe 3/4 season, and then end of season report cards. And the grades we gave the players are relative to our expectations for the players coming into the season. So, for example, you won't see this, but if you saw Logan Stanley with an A+, that's because he's exceeded our expectations so much higher than we would have expected. Whereas if Dylan DeMello had a B+ and Logan Stanley an A+, we're not saying Stanley is better than DeMello kind of thing. It's just relative to our expectations coming into the season.
They are their own barometer for this sort of thing.
Exactly. So let's get into them, Liz. Let's go to the first ones here. These are the forwards.
I don't even remember what I did here. So.
You don't even remember what
gosh,
These are the forwards. These are the forwards. The top 6, if you will, at least coming into the season with no Perfetti. And that's another thing. We didn't give Perfetti, Lowry, Sandberg any grades, or the goalies. Those players were all hurt. Maybe mark it down as an incomplete. We also didn't give Hayden Fleury a grade, or Colin Miller. Not really enough games, and kind of hurt recently with Hayden Fleury as well. So mark those as incomplete grades. But let's start here. Mark Scheifele gets an A- from both Liss and I. Gabe Vilardi gets a B+ from me, a B from Liss. Kyle Connor gets an A- from me, a B+ from Liss. Jonathan Toews, I think this is the one people are most going to be locked into. Liss gives him a C. I gave him a C+. Vlad Nemesnikov, I gave a B+. Liss gave a B. And then Gustav Nyquist, Liss gave a C and I gave a D. Liss, I'm a little bit higher on really everyone here except for Gustav Nyquist, maybe just by a little bit. But your thoughts on these forwards and their quarter season grades?
Yeah, I think as you can tell, they're pretty modest grades for me, but I think that part of it is that my expectation for this team was that they were coming off of a President's Trophy winning year. They kind of finally got over the hump of the playoffs. It's like, all right, what is the next step for this group? And they've just been like, good and whatever. And, I wanted more kind of in that regard. So I think that some of the players that I've wanted to see, like Gabe Vilardi, I remember at the beginning of last season, you and Jacob Stoller, formerly of Sportsnet.ca, gone but never forgotten from the Sunday live crew. You guys did like your Winnipeg Jets hot takes video or whatever. And I think you clocked Gabe Vilardi for like 40 goals or something like that. Like
I did, and I was wrong.
Yeah, you did. Yeah.
I'll put my hand up. The math was there. Liz.
No,
I looked at the goals per
and,
60. The math was there.
I'm a fan of that player. And like, he's the sort of guy where it's like, that's the thing that it's like, knowing that that's kind of in the realm of possibility for this player in terms of what his usage is and what his skill set is and what his history kind of dictates and all that sort of stuff. Like, he's a guy who I've been like, okay, like, my expectation is that he's going to be awesome. but like my hope and you know what I'm looking for is that he kind of takes a step over awesome, and he's just been awesome. You know what I mean? So I think that's kind of where that's at. And Gustav Nyquist, I kind of rate a little bit higher than you. I think simply because I wasn't expecting a whole ton. Like I know there was kind of the joke that he couldn't possibly be worse than last year, but he hasn't been that much better. So like, I don't know. I think that, yeah, it's pretty temperate grading for me kind of here. And, you know, everyone's kind of asking about some other guys. We have more pages of this report card kind of coming up here. So
yeah, I give Gustav Nyquist a D because I did expect more. I'm not going to lie. Like they brought him in as a $3.25 million player for 1 year. You and I talked on this show about how he's maybe a decent buy low candidate because you look at some of the metrics last year and he was okay, but his on ice shooting percentage maybe got a bit unlucky. He has no goals. I will say I do think he had maybe his best game of the season on Friday against the Carolina Hurricanes. Got a bump up in the lineup too. So that grade at mid-season might be a little bit different if he's really coming into his own here. He missed some time with an injury as well. So maybe it's a little harsh for a D, but I just expected a little bit more in terms of him coming into the middle six, not replacing Nikolai Ehlers' production, you know, in full, but, you know, scoring now and again. So I'll give him a D. Jonathan Toews, with Perfetti back, the possession numbers have been more promising. He's not going to be playing with Perfetti today, or at least I'm not expecting that. That's what the lines were yesterday. He'll be playing with Niederreiter and Nyquist, but you know, my expectations were this coming into the season a little bit. And since Perfetti's come back, he's been a little bit better. So that's where it gets the bump for me from C to C plus. You know, my expectations were, you know, this guy hasn't played in 2 years. The first quarter season as well wasn't maybe going to go as well as the mid season and the 3/4 season. So that's why he gets the C plus for me. And then the top line I thought has been, sometimes they're not, you know, dominating 5-on-5 in the way that you want them to be in terms of, you know, giving up too many chances or turning the puck over too often in their own zone. But I think with no Perfetti and Lowry, who we're not giving grades to because they've been hurt, they really did carry the offense in the first 2 weeks of the season there, whether it was on the power play. So I'm willing to excuse a bit of the maybe middling 5-on-5 metrics for them for the offense production that they've put forward, because without them, I don't know where they'd be offensively. And they're going to need them to still be great going forward here. So that's maybe the first run of our report cards. Let's get to the rest of the forwards who we're giving grades to. Nino Niederreiter gets an A- from Lyss, a B+ from me. Alex Iafallo gets an A from Lyss, a B+ from me. Morgan Barron gets also an A from Lyss. I gave him an A-. Tanner Pearson gets a C from Lyss. I get a C-. And then Cole Koepke gets a B- from both of us. Lyss, your thoughts on your grades?
Yeah, I think that a couple of mine, again, it's all relative to expectations. So a few things that I will flag is that after last year, I don't know if being low on Nino Niederreiter is the right word, but definitely a little bit of, you know, my expectation wasn't that, well, obviously, based on what my grade is here, that he was going to be as good as he's been. Morgan Barron, same thing. I've not been as high on Morgan Barron as a lot of other people have. I think that part of it is the dialogue around him where, you know, he'll have a good rush up the ice and drop his shoulder and drive the net and, you know, push a backhand wide, and everyone's like, he should be on the second line. And I'm like, oh my gosh, okay, can we relax for a second here? Like sometimes we just need to let a good thing be a good thing. But he's been really good this year when he's been healthy to kind of start off. So I'll give him some flowers. I like Morgan Barron. I just think that we need to cool our jets a little bit on him. And then, yeah, Tanner Pearson has not given me much positive to write home about. And Cole Koepke, again, kind of an interesting grade. And what I'll give him there is that when the Jets signed him, I was like, okay, didn't have a lot of thoughts on that. But then kind of watching a little bit of his kind of highlight packages and trying to study up on him over the summer, and then watching his training camp, I was like, this guy has the sauce, man. Like I am dialed. So he's been a little bit under my expectations because I kind of raised them for myself. Like I'm disappointing myself here. I kind of put myself in a position to get hurt. But so that's kind of all my guys there. And Alex Iafallo is a dog. So that's kind of my quick rundown to that report card there.
Yeah, I like that. Kenny's Waterball asks, what does one need to go from an A- to an A? Exceed our expectations that much more. I give out a higher grade once we get to the defense because a player has exceeded my expectations even more. It's relative to our expectations coming into the season. And, you know, like B- B is average, you know, roughly. meeting expectation, if you will. So Nino Niederreiter for me has slightly exceeded expectation. Same with Alex Iafallo. They both get a B+. Morgan Barron has really exceeded expectation. He gets an A- for me. The reason he's not an A is because since he's come back from injury, he hasn't had that same, he's had like the skating speed, the forechecking, all of those things, but he's not on the same shooting heater. So maybe he gets knocked down a little bit there from A to A-. Tanner Pearson, I debated giving a D, same with Gustav Nyquist, but Tanner Pearson has scored some goals and he's been on the fourth line for most of the season as well. He hasn't been the best fourth liner by any means, but he's actually contributed on the score sheet now and again. So he gets a C- from me, not quite as low as Nyquist with a D. Cole Koepke, I agree with you, Lyss. My expectation coming into the season, he's kind of met them. Training camp maybe was, he was really good in camp and in the preseason, and he's brought most of those qualities into the regular season. If he scored that goal in San Jose where he had a wide open net and then went to the backhand, I think maybe he'd be at a B, if I'm being completely honest, just because fourth liners chip in, they get more praise from me, and he brings that physicality. He's a great penalty killer as well. So I've been impressed with Cole Koepke, and I hope the offense comes for him soon because I'd like to see the Jets leave him in on that fourth line. I think he brings energy and is great on the penalty kill. Let's get to the defense list where I give out an A++ to Josh Morrissey, who is having the best season of his career so far through 20 games. He's second in the NHL in defensive scoring. His analytics are absolutely off the chart. He's playing the most as well as he ever has in his career. He has the highest average time on ice for a season so far. So far this season, Dylan Samberg was out for a number of games, and he, carried the Jets defense corps through that time as well. So not just A+ for Josh Morrissey, but A++, the highest possible grade, a fake grade, and everyone is already getting on me in the chat. But Josh Morrissey has been unbelievable. He gets an A from you, Lyss. Dylan DeMello, I'm giving a B+. Lyss gives a B. I think Dylan DeMello of late, the past 3 or 4 games, has been really solid. So that's maybe where he gets the bump for me. Neil Pionk gets a B+ from Lyss, a B from me. Logan Stanley gets a B- from Lyss. I gave him a B+. And then Luke Shen, I gave my second D in all of these grades, and Lyss gives a C-. Lyss, where are you at on these grades?
Yeah, so I give Josh Morrissey an A just because I can't, in kind of good conscience, give an A+ to a player that I consider to be Norris caliber. Like, my expectation is that you're going to be
He's never won the Norris,
He's
though.
been unbelievable. So I know.
Here's my reasoning on that. Where what's the highest he's finished? Third in Norris voting. Right now he'd be second. So he's leveled up.
Is he? He's been a Norris finalist.
I believe so. Once. Let me double check this.
You're gonna. You might be right.
He was fourth. He was fourth last year, I want to say. But anyway,
fourth is not the same as third. I feel like there's a big jump between fourth and third.
You're right. But yeah, he was never a finalist. He's never a finalist. And right now he would be. He'd probably even be second behind Cale Makar. So yeah.
Yeah. No, and so I think that my expectation for this player has just raised so much over the last few years, and it's the sort of thing where it's like, I don't know if you guys saw I keep bringing these up every Sunday now, my watchability rankings on Twitter, whatever. Like, I think he's the best Jet. He's the best skater. Like, I think that he is the best Jet, not named Connor Hellebuyck. But like, again, when it's with great power comes great responsibility, my expectation of him is really high. Dylan DeMello, I've expected to be steady and a good partner for Josh Morrissey that enables him to have a good season. That's what he's been so far. Neil Pionk, I had some big questions about in terms of what he was going to do in Dylan Samberg's absence. So that was kind of what my expectation, that's based on that. It's not entirely based on the player, but it was based on how he would look. And he's been okay. So, I was really worried about him going into the season without Dylan Samberg. Logan Stanley, I know everyone's kind of making the A+ jokes or whatever. Guys, I'm sorry, he hasn't been that good. The one thing that I say to kind of defend him is that his usage has gone up so much and he's been so much less sheltered, but his results look very similar to they have in previous years, which is he gives up a lot of high quality chances when he's on the ice. He causes a lot of turnovers. And, I think that maybe I should give him a little bit more love for the goals that he's been scoring and the snipes and all that sort of stuff. But I think my expectation for this player is that as he becomes a mainstay in this lineup, that he has to kind of raise his bar a little bit. And I don't know that he has. So maybe that's me dunking on him too much, but sorry, I am who I am. I don't really know if maybe that's unreasonable, but I stand by it. And
Wow.
Luke Schenn, I think the reason I give him a higher grade than you is just because at the end of last season, I was really concerned about this player and his kind of longevity in this lineup. And he's given me reasons to continue to be concerned about him. So he gets one of my lower grades.
Sure. Sounds good. Yeah. The rest of my grades outside of Josh Morrissey, Dylan DeMello, like I said, a little bit better as of late. So he gets that bump for me. Neil Pionk has been meeting my expectations in terms of, I thought without Dylan Sandberg, he wouldn't look as good as he does look with Dylan Sandberg. And that has, carried through. And I think that pairing has been solid. Maybe, like we said, not Sandberg's best game on Friday against the Carolina Hurricanes, but I've seen more good than bad from that pairing so far this season, more like the pairing last year. Stanley gets a B+ for me just because of the mini offensive explosion that he's gone on. I know it's mainly shooting percentage and he's shooting at a super high clip right now, and it's probably not sustainable, but so far this season, he does have a career high 3 goals, 6 assists, I believe, on pace for roughly 11 goals and 18 or so points, 19 or so points. So he's been solid in terms of the offensive production so far this season. Now, when he's on the third pair, sheltered, you hope that he can replicate that a little bit more. The underlying results can get a little bit better as well, so because he's not in the top 4 going up against the other team's best every game. And then Luke Schenn. I think the Columbus game was his best game of the season, easily. He had a few big hits. The possession numbers were there. He made a few strong breakout passes. He blocked some shots on the penalty kill. Other than that, it's been rough. There have been teams that have just forechecked that third pairing into the ground so far this season, whether it's Luke Schenn and Logan Stanley or it's Hayden Fleury and Luke Schenn or whoever's on that third pair. And Luke Schenn was pretty forthcoming in an interview with Kevin Sawyer in the intermission, saying, he appreciated the coaching staff sticking with him. He didn't think he'd been his best so far this season. So I think he would agree that he hasn't been meeting his own expectations so far this season. But for me, my expectations coming into the season were, that he would be maybe a decent to average to maybe even good positive impact third pair guy. He hasn't been that so far this season, but that can change. That can absolutely change. We'll do mid-season report cards too, and we will be updating these for sure. And maybe by that time, the chat will lay off us a little bit. Listen, no, I'm kidding.
No kidding.
I'm kidding. No, we love it. This is exactly what we wanted, was for people to talk about our grades.
Bring up
and
the
provide their own grades.
Kenny's Waterball quote of the "I give quarter season report card segment an A+ just for the entertainment coming from the chat."
Nice.
And I agree.
Exactly.
You guys get an A+.
Exactly.
We love giving us Fs.
We love that. We love
people are still talking about Brad Lambert at the chat. So I think that the half of they haven't moved on yet. And I get it.
Yeah, I mean, this is exactly what we wanted to do was chat. Dallas asking for goaltending grades. We're not going to do that just because Hellebuyck's now hurt, and then Comrie has played but has been okay. I think Comrie's met expectations or maybe exceeded a little bit further, and Connor Hellebuyck's always good, so maybe just give him an A.
Rocking B+s and A's, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, rough quarter season report cards for those guys. We'll do more. We'll maybe do them at mid-season when we get a bigger sample with Comrie being the starter now. But those are
some parent-teacher interviews next. Yeah.
Yes, parent-teacher interviews. Exactly. But those are our quarter season report cards. Super, super pumped to do those. And we'll do mid-season, 3/4 season, and end of season as well as we keep up with the Winnipeg Jets. Let's now roll through our segments. We're at 10:05 here on Sunday morning. The Jets play at 3 o'clock today against the Minnesota Wild. But first, before we get to our Chud's Power Sports Power Poll, we have to give a shout out to our friends over at Chud's Power Sports. They're ready for the snow to fall. Winter is right around the corner. I know it was beautiful yesterday. I spent a lot of the day outside, but they're ready for snow. They're ready for winter. They've got it all over on their website. I have it up here on the screen behind me. They've got snowmobiles. They've got RVs, ice houses. I know people are big ice fishers here in Winnipeg in the province of Manitoba. Maybe Connor Hellebuyck will be spending more time on the ice fishing over the next 4 to 6 weeks as he rehabs his knee. They've got boats, UTVs, ATVs, dirt bikes, street bikes. They've got it all over on their website. They've got a ton of great deals as well up on the website. If you can't check them out in person, at the corner of Highway 8 and 231 up in Gimli. Check out their website, chudspowersports.com. They've got, the deals are rolling through. They've got so much there. If you need anything for the upcoming winter season, check out chudspowersports.com. Shout out to Chuds once again for sponsoring this episode and our power polls here on WST Sunday Live. Let's get to it, Lyss. I kind of threw this together when Adam Lowry signed his extension, 5 years, $5 million. We can talk about that. But here it is. My top five, or our top five Adam Lowry moments. Number one is the double OT game winner, Game 7 against the St. Louis Blues. And there should probably be a massive gap between 1 and 2.
Yeah.
Number two, tying goal versus Vegas in Game 3 of 2020. That should say 2023. Or no, it was 2022 against Vegas. The 2022-23 season. These are all, and then the Colorado one's 2024. Sorry, I got the years mixed up there. But the tying goal versus Vegas, the Jets staged a huge comeback in that game. He scored, the place went nuts, and then they lost in double overtime on a Dylan Samberg turnover in that game. But the tying goal was absolutely nuts. My third, his double post goal against Colorado in the first round in 2023. He crushed Mikko Rantanen on the boards, beat Nathan MacKinnon to the front of the net, and then hit the post twice, and play continued because no one knew if he had scored or not. And then they blew the play dead. They went and looked at the monitor, and it hit both posts, but in the time it went over and hit each post, it crossed the goal line just barely. And Adam Lowry was a beast in that game. That was the game the Jets beat the Colorado Avalanche 7-6. Still probably the craziest hockey game, second craziest to another.
Can't believe the series ended after that. There was only one game in that
one game,
series.
and
I
then
can't believe it.
And then
Wow.
COVID 2.0 happened, and the rest of the series just didn't. Exactly. Crazy stuff there. Number 4. The goal 12 seconds into Game 5 in 2019, when I would go to games with my dad before I started covering the team, I sat in Section 309, which is the attack zone. So like Game 5, 2-2 series, they're starting the Lowry line with Tanev and Kopp, and they score 12 seconds in. Adam Lowry scores. Like that place went into a frenzy. I'll still remember that. And then number 5, the moment he became captain, right before Blake Wheeler got the captaincy stripped, and then they played that season. He was the A. It was the Nikolai Ehlers hit game from Ryan Hartman in Minnesota. Things got out of hand late. He stood up for his teammates. There's that video of him walking down the tunnel after all of those fights and sticking for his teammates, and everyone is fired up for him. Let's go, Lows. So that moment for me is always going to be the moment where he got the captaincy, because we spent that whole season talking Josh Morrissey or Adam Lowry, who should be the captain of the Winnipeg Jets. That moment for me sealed the deal for him, and that's going to be number 5 on the Chuds Power Sports Power Poll. Thoughts on this list, Lyss?
Love it. I agree with your kind of statement of the gap between 1 and 2. But look, I think that my dad and I have talked a ton in the last little bit about how like the concept of a captain in the NHL, I feel like, has like changed a lot in the last little bit. And like this whole idea of like your best player having to be your captain because of respect and this and needing to become a leader and all that just gets a little bit lost on me. Like, I'm sorry, I don't care how much of a homer I sound like this is your captain, bro. Like this is your captain. These, this list is compiled of some huge goals and huge moments, but also these fights and these things that kind of really make him a huge part of this team in terms of kind of getting them on their horse and everything like that. Like he's just got so much dog in him, and that translates into some underrated offense, but also kind of going out there and blowing a Nazem Kadri in a game against Calgary where the team needs a win, right? There's just a lot about this player that has become so beloved to the city over the last little bit. And this isn't a contract that I pinch pennies on, that I look at, $250,000 up or down of AAV and question or anything like that. This extension news coming kind of at that gala on Wednesday and all that sort of stuff that we have seen around in the last couple of days. Like, yeah, you got to do it. And, look, if at the end of his contract, he's not worth $5 million, I think that it'll end up being okay. And this is not going to be a contract or a captain that's going to end the way the Blake Wheeler captaincy did. And I can tell you that for free.
Yes, absolutely. And I agree with you that like the way a captain is being viewed around the league is changing big time, because I don't know. Like, I would love my captain if a player throws a dirty hit against my team. I want my captain to stick up for them. If my captain is Connor McDavid or Austin Matthews, no, I don't want them fighting. So it's a little bit of a difference there. And also, it doesn't have to be a fight. You know, Adam Lowry very much sets the tone with big, legal, clean hits of his own sort of thing. And I just don't feel like, yes, teams often give the captaincy to their best players. That's totally fine. But Adam Lowry embodies what a captain should be, at least for this Jets team.
No, and I agree with it kind of across the board. And I think that, you know, playing professional hockey can come with a lot of pressure. And I think that, you know, captaincy is a ton of pressure, but being the highest performing player on a team is also a ton of pressure. So I think adding those pressures together can make it really, really difficult for a player to kind of have to manage that. You have kind of the whole city relying on you to score all of the goals and to also go speak at all of the charity galas or whatever, you know, like all these different things. Like there's so many different layers to kind of what the expectations are. And, you know, so I agree with you from the perspective of, like a guy to kind of go out there and sacrifice the body for a makeup XYZ after something happens to one of his stars is one thing, but also just the whole idea of how much pressure that kind of adds to you for that leadership. And I think that if guys need to go out there and, you know, be Josh Morrissey and be a Norris caliber defenseman every single game in order for, like, that's a lot of pressure. So I think that if you could alleviate that a little bit by not also having all the expectations of captaincy, I think it probably bodes well for a lot of players. These guys are human. Like that's a lot to manage. So I think that, you know, Adam's a guy who's really taken and embraced this in the last 2 years. Yeah.
And Adam Lowry was asked about this when he had his press conference or his scrum talking about the extension, but Sean Reynolds of Sportsnet asked him about, you know, whether or not he takes into account, or maybe it was Murat actually. All the days are blending together. There was so much news on Friday.
One of our two goats.
Yeah, so one of them. I'm trying to give credit here, but I'm just going down a rabbit hole.
Butchering it.
Yeah, I am. He was asked by someone about, you know, him embodying what it means to be like a Winnipegger, you know, like it feels like it transcends what, you know, captain of the Winnipeg Jets. He's humble. He works very hard. And that those are the qualities of Winnipeggers, if you will. And he was asked about that and kind of deflected it. But I agree with it. I think he embodies the city. I think he embraces the city in terms of all the community work that he does. And then you talk about on the ice player. There's a dirty hit, he's going to fight. You need someone to set the tone in game 5 of a big playoff series, he'll do that. You need someone to score a game 7 double overtime winner as the number 1 center that night because Mark Scheifele's hurt, he'll do that too. Like I could not disagree more with all of the, you know, you called it penny pinching. I 100% agree. I can't believe that. Like, sure, you want to argue this is too long or too much? Come on. This is Adam Lowry. I don't care.
This is where we get to the intangibles or whatever you want to call. But also, okay, let's be real. Like his results are freaking good too. Like anyways, we don't need to rehash all of that. But yeah, like this is
Let me quickly try and find this because I tweeted it out when.
No, are you talking about the Dom Lucian projections?
When I tweeted out, not everything needs a reaction because it was market value 2.7 million. Unbelievable. But here, I tweeted out this stat. Since Adam Lowry became the captain for the Winnipeg Jets, the Jets have outscored their opponents 76-42 with him on the ice. That's a 64.41% 5-on-5 goal share. The only player better that has played, I believe, 2,000 minutes over the past 3 seasons, Nikolai Ehlers. The only better player with a better 5-on-5 goal share than Adam Lowry.
But again, that's the thing. Yeah, better 5-on-5 goal share. Perennial second liner. Quality of competition. Like, come on. Like, let's
Adam
go
Lowry
here. Like,
has a 64.4% 5-on-5 goal share and a 54.87 expected goal percentage in the last 3 seasons. And he gets the tough matchup. He's going to get Kirill Kaprizov today. You know, like that he wins his minutes at a 64% rate, and the underlying numbers say that 55% of the time he's outchancing his opponents, or he's controlling 55% of the chances, and people are concerned that maybe it's a little too long. Well, 5 years from now, Connor Hellebuyck will be 37 anyways, and, you know,
nothing's going to matter. What is the Devin Cooley quote? Like, we're all going to die one day. Like, 2034 is so beyond my concerns right
Yeah,
now.
yeah. But anyways, so far in his career, there's our top 5 Adam Lowry moments on our Chuds Power Sports Power Poll. Shout out to Chuds once again for sponsoring this episode and our Power Polls here on WST Sunday Live. Really, really appreciate it. Now, Lyss, we are going to talk briefly about today's game. We are going to talk briefly about, I know you want to talk maybe a little bit more about the Manitoba Moose, and you can maybe take them on this segment. But let's get to our next segment, Trending Up Down. This is the segment where we pick one Winnipeg Jet or maybe Manitoba Moose player who's trending up or down over the past week of play.
Just open a can of worms for me.
Yeah, now you have the whole Moose team to choose from. No, but this is Trending Up Down. If you're here with us live on YouTube, really, really appreciate it. 10:17 a.m. on a Sunday. Going long today, but so much to talk about. Drop your picks for Trending Up Down in the chat down below. Lyss, who do you got for Trending Up Down from this past week of play?
All right, you set me up for it. I'm gonna go with a Manitoba Moose player. And you know what? I'm gonna go with, if you folks haven't watched a ton of Manitoba Moose hockey in the last couple weeks, no problem. They were on the road. It's expensive to pay for flow hockey. Not all of us are sickos like me. I get it. But Manitoba Moose have been lots of fun to watch in the last little bit. I'm gonna give my trending up pick to Walker Duehr. He's a guy who was brought in.
Nice pick.
For, like I included him in that list of guys that I think brought in that kind of higher end AHL pieces that can really maybe build up this team a little bit more, all that good stuff. He's been phenomenal. Connor and I were at the game yesterday having some fun kind of watching the game. And there are a couple times that Walker Duehr really got on his horse and drove the net and a couple of really nice passes and stuff like that. He's one of their top scorers. He has 9 points so far, which doesn't sound like a lot, but they've very much been a success by committee team in the games that they've won. Mm-hmm. Their highest performing player has 10 points in 17 games, and that's Phil DiGiuseppe. But kind of you go down the lineup, they have like multiple guys with 9 points, 8 points, whatever. So Walker Duehr is the second leading scorer right now, 6 goals and 3 assists for the team. And, he's had a couple of multi-goal games, all that good stuff. So he's trending up for me. We'll go with Walker Duehr.
Nice. I like that. He absolutely was the Moose, their best player yesterday, I'd say. Like, he had 3 or 4 breakaways, Lyss, and didn't convert on all of them. He did score a goal, very nice goal, but the speed just jumps off the rink, if you will. He was awesome for the Moose. And Derek Schmidt, probably at the game yesterday, was locked in on this too, said the same thing. Number 7 Moose, Walker Duehr. He's having a great season so far for the Manitoba Moose. So, and the Manitoba Moose, 6 straight wins. They are rolling. They just got a full line of forwards sent to them in Parker Ford, Brad Lambert, and Nikita Chibrikov. I said to Lyss yesterday, like, I was just waiting for the bad line to come out, because you watch AHL hockey, and usually when the 4th line comes out, you're like, all right, this is the point where, like, who are these guys? It just never reached that point yesterday where I was like, who's on the ice? Like, everyone was a recognizable player, and that's very, very uncommon for AHL teams. Let's put it that way. My trending up pick, he was an A++ on my quarter season report cards. I'm going to give it to Josh Morrissey. I tweeted out yesterday, any Team Canada mock-up that doesn't have Josh Morrissey in its top 4 is incorrect. Just flat out. He's having the best season of his career so far. Second in the NHL in defenseman scoring. Played a ton of minutes on Friday night in the loss to the Carolina Hurricanes, but we talked on the post-game list about how the Jets were really pushing in that third period. Josh Morrissey was at the center of that. It's a treat to watch him every single game, just what he can do with the puck offensively in the neutral zone, the way he tilts the ice at 5-on-5 when he's out there. So I've had so much fun watching Josh Morrissey over the past couple of weeks, and I can't wait to watch him in Milan with Team Canada this season. So trending up, which again, it's all about where these players are at. For Josh Morrissey to be trending up, he has to be transcending the standard that he's been playing at the past number of years. And in my opinion, he's doing that. I think he's been even better this season. So Josh Morrissey's my pick for trending up. Who do you got for trending down, Lyss?
I was looking at our list of trending up, trending down. If folks are new here, we have set an internal rule for ourselves that we're not allowed to pick guys we picked last week. So that always kind of gives a little bit of a constraint for us. But I'm looking... The guy I'm about to pick has not once received trending down this year. Okay. I'm going to pick Tanner Pearson. Tanner Pearson gets my trending down pick. I'm a little surprised that he hasn't had a trending down pick this year. But you know what? Good for us because, But this past week, the Winnipeg Jets getting a little bit healthier. So we're starting to see a little bit more of, they kind of have just been putting in the next guy available for some of their forward spots as injuries have kind of commanded. And now that they had more than 12 forwards healthy, Tanner Pearson had his first healthy scratch. So I think that, he's a guy who, if you saw our quarter season report cards earlier in the show here, that I haven't been super high on. So he's going to get my trending down pick for this week.
Okay, sounds good. Where do I want to go here? I'm going to take Brad Lambert. I'm going to take Brad Lambert because we watched the Moose game yesterday and he wasn't great, in my opinion at least, and he just had the trade request and all of those things. He just got sent down as well. All of those things maybe combined for his trending down pick this week. Like we said, we talked at length. We'll see if anything comes of this kind of trade request. Scott O'Neill was actually asked about it by Sean Reynolds. I remember who asked this question. Sean Reynolds asked Scott O'Neill about Brad Lambert and how you kind of handle that. And Scott O'Neill said, until anything happens, he's viewing him as a Winnipeg Jet, which is absolutely the mindset a head coach should take with this. And we'll see if anything does happen. People want me to take Sandberg. It's not going to happen, folks. I don't know if Dylan Sandberg will ever be taken by me for trending down. I just don't know if I could ever do that. But no, I'll take Brad Lambert.
He puts together 3 games in a row between Monday and Saturday that look worse than his normal string of games. Then he's on the block for sure.
He's on the block. Yeah, you would have to take him though. You would have.
I would have to take him.
No, but Brad Lambert is my actual pick for trending down. And we also took Sandberg for trending up last week. So like Lyss said, he was off the board. He was off the board, guys. Come on. Give him a week to figure things out here. He'll be fine. No, but I'm going to take Brad Lambert this week on trending up, trending down. Now, Lyss, let's get to our final segment before we let people go. 3:00 puck drop down at Canada Life Center today. The Jets taking on the Minnesota Wild, who are red hot. And this segment is red hot as we get to one burning question. This is the part of the show where we open up the chat room, which is usually flooded with questions, and we try and rapid fire through as many as we can before we wrap today's show. So if you have a question on the Winnipeg Jets that we did not get to on today's show and you want us to answer, drop it in the comments down below and we will get to our one burning question. Lyss, my one burning question for you is, what are you expecting from the Winnipeg Jets today? Are you expecting another strong 5-on-5 performance?
I am. I think that this is a team that every now and then, not all of their players are the most, divulge the most information in post-game media by any means, but they do tend to refer to what kind of video they are watching and stuff like that going into games and everything. And that the video session is going to be long today in terms of, okay, you played this team already once this year. Much has changed in the last few weeks since this has happened. So I think they're going to be prepared for this one. So hoping that we see a little bit of special teams regression to looking a little bit more like the special teams we've come to kind of expect from this group and everything like that. But I'm expecting that this will be one of the more interesting Jets Wild games that we've had in a while, because as we know, Jets are 8-0-0 in their last 8 against the Wild. It hasn't, and some of them have been close. But I think that today's going to be today's going to actually be a really fun game. Okay.
Yeah, I'm excited for this game too because, the Wild are red hot, as I've said probably 14 times on today's Sunday Live, but 8-1-1, and they've leapfrogged the Jets in the standings, and the Jets just lost Hellebuyck, so they'll need to play one of their better 5-on-5 games of the season if they want to win, and we'll see if the Jets kind of have that in them. They've played 2 in a row, in my opinion, 2 strong 5-on-5 games. Can they make it 3 today against the Minnesota Wild? Let's get to some of these questions. Darth Skater. All of these name changes are throwing me off, by the way. YouTube changed.
No kidding.
YouTube changed it so that it's everyone's like YouTube handle. It's throwing me off.
Yeah,
big
I don't
time.
like it.
A lot of the profile
Instagram
pictures.
Story views were like that for a bit, where it was like they would make it the name and then they made it the username again, and it was weird. It was like,
yeah, a lot of the profile pictures, like this photo of Darth Vader skating, making it Darth Skater. I can recognize, but man, this is getting tough here. I got to relearn all these names. But anyways, Darth Skater asks, which games does Milic get? So let's go to the schedule here. Going back to November really quickly. At the end of November, the Jets will take on the Nashville Predators right there on Saturday, second night of a back-to-back. I think that's Thomas Milic's first NHL start. Comrie. 2 days off. Comrie will get Washington. He'll get Carolina. And then going into December list, there's a back-to-back here. I think he gets the Buffalo game on the Friday as opposed to the Edmonton game on the Saturday. And then, I don't know. Does he get another one? Say Connor Hellebuyck comes back Christmas Day, Christmas present for the Winnipeg Jets. Connor Hellebuyck's good to go. Does he get another one?
I could see maybe Milic getting like that St. Louis game, that random Wednesday, like whatever, like just because that's a lot of games in a row for Comrie. If he were to get, what is that? Like that would be 8 consecutive games and, you know,
I was going to say the Ottawa game, maybe. Ottawa's been good, but I think the team I'd want Milic to face the most on that 4-game homestand. Is that fair?
Yeah, that's fair. And like Ottawa's at home too, so there's also a little bit more. You can control your environment a little bit more. So yeah, I don't know. And
St. Louis, I think is going to be a big game for this Jets group.
Yeah.
After last season.
Yeah, so. I think that's pretty reasonable.
Although St. Louis has been bad, so like their record is
that's
very
what
bad
I was thinking of that too.
So
but yeah,
as big of a game as it might be for the Winnipeg Jets to continue what they did last season in the playoffs, it might not really matter. Let me get this graphic back up here. One burning question. Kthor27 asks, when will Barron get moved up the lineup? Not today, as he's still on the 4th line. Let me try and get these lines back up here, Lyss. But the lines are going to be the same way that they finished yesterday's game. Or not yesterday. We were at the Moose game yesterday. But Friday night against the Carolina Hurricanes, where Barron is still on the 4th line with Iafallo and Koepke. The first line is Connor Sheffield-Velarde. No changes there. The second line is Nemesnikov, Lowry, Perfetti. So kind of a swap there in terms of that used to be Taves' spot on the second line with Nemesnikov and Perfetti. Lowry's now there. Niederreiter, Taves, Nyquist is the 3rd line. So Nyquist gets a bump up from the 4th line down up to the 3rd line. And then Iafallo goes from the 3rd line to the 4th line. This is how it looks here. Bring up the lines here on the screen. I think this is what we're going with today. Barron will still be on the 4th line. Do you think that changes anytime soon, Lyss? When will Barron get moved up the lineup?
When someone gets hurt again. I don't think that with a healthy lineup that the Winnipeg Jets see him above Mark Scheifele, Adam Lowry, or Jonathan Taves in the depth chart, right? So I think that if you're going to keep him at center, I think the most likely outcome for promotion would be moving him back to the wing. But I think that I like him where he is. And like this line, I'm sorry, Koepke, Barron, Iafallo, that's called the sauce, man. Like that is so fun. That's kind of in the similar vein to what I was talking about with a good depth environment for Brad Lambert to play in or something like that. Not that I think that Iafallo should be playing on the 4th line, but I think that line has the potential to kind of cook and feast on other teams' 4th lines maybe. So I don't know when he will get moved back up in the lineup. I think that right now, pretty much everyone who's above him in the lineup, the Winnipeg Jets consider to be above him in the depth chart. So,
yeah. I'm shocked you didn't take a chance to comment on Tanner Pearson, top line center.
Oh God, right? I forgot about that. I wasn't even looking at that top line.
Mark Scheifele, maintenance day yesterday. He'll be fine. He'll play. I'll take this question from Derek Schmidt and kind of change it a little bit. He says, "Will the Wild try and injure Perfetti today?" Every time there's
Will Logan Stanley try to injure Kirill Kaprizov today? Is that what you're going to say?
Do you think there's a moment today, Lyss, between the Jets and the Wild? Do you think there's something?
Yeah, I think there's a moment today. I feel like we've been
like
pretty temperate for the last couple of games between these two teams or whatever. I think today is going to get a moment.
Yeah.
Can I give you a burning question?
Yes.
I was thinking about the first question was about Milic and his playtime.
Yeah.
What type of environment do you think it would take in order for him to get his first NHL action as a relief goaltender for Eric Comrie? Because like if Eric Comrie gives up 9 goals, like what's his name did in Chicago the other day.
Oh, Soderblom.
Soderblom. Like, you know, you want to pull your guy, but also like, can you imagine putting in Thomas Milic for his first ever sniff of NHL action in a game where your team's getting shelled 6-0 or something? Like, what do you think it would take in order, like what kind of performance would it take from the team or Comrie in order for him to get his first action as like a relief goalie?
Outside of like the scheduled start is what you're saying.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it would have to take, I think, like, 3 or 4 goals against on 12 or less shots on Eric Comrie kind of thing in a game where it's over and they're maybe saving Comrie for the next one kind of thing where they're down 5-0 and they're saving him. I just think they have faith in Eric Comrie. All the players talked about that. Scott O'Neill talked about that. They have so much faith in him that they're going to be running with him. And unless a game is really out of hand and it's at one part of the schedule where if you take Comrie out now, you can maybe save him for the next game kind of thing, that's where I might see it. Other than that, I think he gets the Nashville game, the Buffalo game, maybe the St. Louis game, and then Connor Hellebuyck's back. And Eric Comrie starts, like 14 of the 17 games, And in terms of a relief performance, like it would have to be a lot of goals against very quickly in a game that is over to answer your one burning question. I don't know if you agree, but that's where I'm at with that. Kenny's water bottle and someone else, Alan Hayes, I believe it was, asked, again, these names are, here it is. They both asked it. Will the Jets be above or below the playoff line when Hellebuyck returns, Lyss? They're below it right now, not by points percentage, though. They're below it right now. Every team ahead of them has played more games, essentially. Above or below?
I'm going below.
Below?
I'm going below.
I'm also going below.
Because I think that you have two spots that are an absolute lock in Dallas and Colorado. And then you have a couple other teams that are flirting with, some strong performances lately. And the Pacific at this stage, having more teams kind of in that wildcard race, I do stand by that. I think that when all is said and done, we'll still have two central wildcard teams. But I think that for the rest of the year, like there's still some questions about that. And by year, I mean calendar year. So I'm going below the playoff line by the time he comes back.
Yes. I'm with you on that. I think we'll see. Even if the Jets can replicate this 5-on-5 game multiple times between now and the Christmas break, I still think they'll be at right below the playoff line kind of thing. And if they are in a playoff spot by the time Connor Hellebuyck gets back, that is a huge win in my opinion. I agree. Kenny's water bottle here mentions they've played fewer games. Absolutely. By points percentage right now, they're in a playoff spot technically. I think they're 6th or 5th in the West by points percentage, so they'd be in one right now if they just continued the same pace. But we know that over the next couple of weeks, they might not continue that same pace after losing their MVP goaltender for 4 to 6 weeks. That's going to do it. It's 10:33. Wow, this show has just absolutely flown by today as we have had so much to talk about, Lyss. Is there anything else you want to mention before we wrap today's show? We didn't even talk about the Moose. We were at the game yesterday. They've won 6 straight.
We talked about them enough. That's okay.
We did. We talked about
them in the
got trending up,
and then also in the Brad Lambert conversation, kind of about where they're at and stuff. But True North doesn't pay me, guys. But if you're looking for something kind of fun, they're fun to watch. Connor was kind of a little bit, shook up by how much more fun he had watching that game than he had from watching some of the Manitoba Moose of old games and stuff like that. Like it's great hockey. Like it was a lot of fun. So you're ever looking for something fun to do when they're home, they're always a good time. We have a blast there. So yeah, it's really fun to kind of go watch them. And it's nice to see kind of some fun, like Colby Barlow. If you haven't seen his goal from yesterday, like you got to watch the highlight, man. Like Danny Jilkin just like stud below the goal line, couple of nice passes. Like it was a fun time. So yeah, go Moose, go. That's my
the Danny Jilkin heater is here, and it's alive and
Linsanity
well.
Run,
and he's been awesome. Yeah, and I love to see that. I've had some conversations with Danny, in training camp and stuff, and interviewed him a few years ago. He's such a good guy. So happy for him. Colby Barlow gets, I believe that's his 3rd goal of the season. Hopefully he can get going and get on a goal scoring heater here as well. But the Moose, I know you said it there, absolutely fun to watch. Like they're a machine when they're on. Maybe in the 3rd period and the back half of that game yesterday, they weren't as on. But the first half of that game, they were just dominating the Chicago Wolves. And it's honestly a fun thing to watch. Look at Dallas Pauls. We saw Dallas yesterday on his birthday. Happy belated birthday.
2 days ago, man. Your days are all screwed up.
Okay, Friday was so long that it was like a week. I should just start mentioning like 3 weeks ago when Connor Hellebuyck got hurt. Like, oh my God. 2 days ago, Dallas, we saw at WST Ticket Pack Night. Shout out Dallas Pauls. 1919 Super Chat. I don't know if that was intentional. A little Little Brown Jug reference there, but shout out Dallas. Really
Jonathan
appreciate
Taves X2.
Ooh, Jonathan Taves. There you go. Jonathan Taves scores today? Might be a sign of things to come. Twice? That would be wild. I'll be clipping this if that happens. Anyways, Thank you, Dallas. We really appreciate the super chat for coffee, he says, for Connor and Lyss. Thank you so much. And shout out to
I'm
everyone.
out, so
You're out. Yeah, so you can go get a coffee. There you go.
there you go.
Shout out to everyone sticking around today here on Sunday mornings, WST Sunday Live. I know that this was a longer episode as we are here at 10:36, but the Jets take on the Minnesota Wild today at 3. We wanted to fit all of that in before today's game. See you down at the rink. The Jets taking on the Wild at 3. The Wild 8-1-1 in their last 10. The Jets without Connor Hellebuyck, Eric Harmer getting the start. The new look lines that we just brought up there. A lot of things to watch for today in today's game. So that's going to do it from Lyss Houde. I'm Connor Hrabchak. Thank you for watching another edition of WST Sunday Live. Hit the like button on the way out, and we will see you next Sunday right here at 9 a.m. on WST Sunday Live. Before then, tune into the post-game show. We'll have a post-game reaction later today. Me and Tyson Ruwicki are going to be on that one. And then, of course, all week long, Huss and Remo, 1 o'clock on the Winnipeg Sports Talk YouTube channel. But listen, I will see you once again next Sunday, WST Sunday Live. Thanks for tuning in, and take care.